Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Shrink Next Door. And my fiance Jess was super excited about this coming out because she listened to the podcast telling this crazy story of, over the course of a couple of decades, a psychiatrist who slowly kind of just takes over the life of a man. And his name is Marty Markowitz, and played by Will Ferrell, and then you have his Dr. Ike, and Dr. Ike is played by Paul Rudd, and you have Marty's sister Phyllis, who on and off in his life played by Kathryn Hahn. And I know there's some controversy upon release. I know with like Sarah Silverman pointing out it's like Paul Rudd's the only actual Jewish actor here, and it's like putting on like Jewish face. But looking at these performances, and right at the heart of this series, focusing on these different stories, is like these three people, and for the most part, it's Ferrell and Rudd that are through this whole entire series. You do have probably the Casey Wilson, who plays Bonnie, who's Ike's wife, has a decent amount of time in it as well, but you have Will Ferrell here at the front, and this is a really good comedic performance in certain layers, but like this is a dramatic performance for Ferrell, and you have certain things that, like, he's quirky and he has some funny things, but there's a lot of social anxiety, there's a lot of anxiety and guilt in Marty, and Will Ferrell is able to capture that really well in a meaningful and poignant way. It's also relatable. We've definitely had moments where it's like you're trying to avoid trying to talk to somebody and you're trying to hide behind like a curtain and stuff like that because, Marty runs this curtain company, and he winds up getting convinced by his sister to go speak to a psychiatrist, and he meets Dr. Ike, played by Paul Rudd, who's extremely charismatic, and they hit it off, and he really pushes boundaries, and he pushes boundaries really hard. And it becomes very clear that maybe Dr. Ike, at first it's like he's a little rough around the edges, not exactly the most ethical kinds of things, but like he cares, right? And here's the thing, over the course of these episodes, the systematic evolution of the abuse going on here is really tragic. And watching how Ike pushes Marty over the course of the series to do some things that he's not very proud of, it's sad and uncomfortable and really puts you in a place where you're just like, oh. Like, you feel for Marty. You really feel for him. And you have all these feelings, and you see Ike, and, you spend time with Ike and Bonnie, and you see him, how he manipulates his wife, too. There's a lot of gaslighting in this show, and a lot of guilt, and how he's playing off of people, and all he really wants to do is take advantage, and over the course of this takes place over 3 decades, and the amount of abuse that goes on is shocking. And the way that this series is directed and written and played out, it's constantly building up this tension, and from week to week, you're just like, I can't wait to see what happens next. And you're just hoping that Marty snaps out of it, and that's why it's so compelling. And then you have Kathryn Hahn, who plays Phyllis, who kind of like sandwiches the series, because for a lot of it, Phyllis isn't in Marty's life, but you see their relationship and the complexities of their relationship and how Ike's prying upon that and pointing out things that she does that is abusive. And, maybe she does ask a lot of Marty, but like Dr. Ike is doing some terrible things to him, and all in the guise of like, I'm doing this for you, Marty. And it's just like, are you? I don't think so. And there's just so much abuse and trauma throughout this series, and it's very poignant, and it just hits. And how this series plays out is just so compelling. And there's definitely subtlety and slow burn over the course of this series, because like this isn't like escalates very quickly, and Marty finally finds his way, and we're back to living his regular life. Like, this is 30 years almost where this is all drawn out, and it's hard to watch at times because you're just like, no, Marty, don't do that. And we're all sitting there because, like, you can see Paul Rudd's performance is just so perfect because you see the gears going at every single moment. And you can tell at that moment where that shark smells that blood in the water to, like, money. And it just starts circling. And you see him circling through this whole entire series. And as a sharp look to it, it's an emotional ride. This is a compelling, crazy story. So go over to Apple TV Plus and treat yourself to this because, you know, this is pretty interesting. And you'll be sitting there in disbelief with how this whole story plays out. But those are my thoughts on The Shrink Next Door. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some TV. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.